Hello and welcome to lecture 3 of the series of lectures in the supply chain risk management course. As I have indicated in lecture 1 and lecture 2, this is risk management as applies to supply chains, and therefore you will find that it is slightly different from risk management in financial institutions or in insurance companies, except that the underlying principle governing what is risk is the same. In this unit, we will look at risk and assessing the risk in the supply chain. The model looks at trends in the supply chain, and in this we want to look at integration of supply chains, cost reduction, agile logistics, e-business, globalization, outsourcing, and changing practices in logistics. As we might be aware, for many years now, logistics was seen as an operational problem that did not deserve much attention. Most organizations did not see the logistics function as worthy of any serious attention. I have often said, without any disrespect to people who were employed as messengers, you'll find that in most organizations, you go and the people who were employed as messengers, when they show good behavior, they are promoted to stores. And then they become more or less the logistics officers of the company. Finance department will purchase the things, and then these things will be stored at the stores under the care of these people. Sometimes it is pathetic when it comes to accounting for the things they have even issued. It is quite recently that organizations are beginning to pay attention to the logistics function. So procurement has been created, stores have been created, and organizations are employing professionals, people who have the training and the requisite knowledge to be able to man these things. So you will find that, but the trend now is that people are buying more from websites than visiting shops. Many products that were made locally are now coming from China and other countries. Mobile communication has made transfer of information extremely easy. Many industries are beginning to be dominated by multinationals. Radio frequencies and geographical global positioning systems are being introduced to track movements. Movement of people, movement of materials, movement of a lot of things. So because of that, of course, it is important that we are able to understand the nature of present-day supply chain risk. And at some point, we should be able to assess it. Analyzing it will deal with analyzing supply chain risk in Unit 5. Now, free trade is also having its own impact. So clearly, supply chains are changing. But, you know, every change comes with its own peculiarities, its own challenges. The challenge that this change in the supply chain and the way things are being done today is that it is making the supply chain more vulnerable, because you need to involve a lot of people in the entire trade. We just finished looking at supply chain, and we know that the supply chain is one series of actors. Some people have said it is a link, organizations linked together with a common goal of satisfying the customer. Other people have said it goes beyond just the actions. It includes the mechanisms that are put in place. So when things are changing from the way they were done traditionally, of course, it creates challenges for the supply chain. So what is supply chain vulnerability? And we will say that supply chain vulnerability is a point of weakness or a possible point of weakness or threat to the supply chain network. Without a doubt, supply chains, short or long, are networks because it involves different activities often done by different organizations or different people. So the question to ask at this point is, why are supply chains so vulnerable? And you find that it is because there is a trend towards cost reduction. And the trend towards cost reduction has given birth to what? Global supply chains. Because people now look beyond their immediate environment to see wherever they can reduce costs. It is thus making supply chains complex, because you can imagine that if a product has to move from the US through UK to Ghana, of course, US has its own regulations and rules. UK has its own. Ghana has its own. That makes this supply chain complex because it has to deal with many different geographical areas and different cultures, different rules and regulations. That creates risk and thus create points where the supply chain can fail. Because something can move from US and get to UK, and UK officials will say no, they are not letting it cross. In fact, for human beings who are traveling, the most painful is to do a transit in a country that requires you to have transit visa. And then they return you back to your country, not because of the destination. Isn't that painful? I am going to the US. Maybe I decide to fly Egypt Air, and Egypt Air passes me through Egypt. And Egypt says I should have had a transit visa. And because I don't have a transit visa, they are returning me to Ghana. That is serious vulnerability. Therefore, people like to take what? Direct flights. I take a direct flight, or I buy from airlines that don't require transit visas. Then there is also a trend towards outsourcing non-core business activities. And when you do that, you know that you lose control of certain aspects of your survival. Because when you outsource what you think is not your non-core business, you are going to become reliant on this company that you have given this business to. If they are good, you are good. If they are bad, you are dead. Then there's also a trend towards just-in-time and lean practices. You know, just-in-time is an attempt to store as little as possible. It tries to eliminate warehousing, as inventory and warehousing, as much as possible. You are producing just in time for delivery. You are also producing just at the time materials are arriving. They are just from arrival, maybe they are offloaded for a few minutes and then they go to production. And when the finished products are also produced, in no time they are sent away to satisfy the order. And this is supposed to create efficiency for the organization. But you see, as you pursue efficiency, you lose sight of effectiveness. You may be efficient because don't forget that efficiency is an input-output ratio. Sometimes we calculate efficiency by looking at how much output we got from how much input we put in. But the fact that we have been able to be efficient doesn't mean we are effective. Effective means applying things appropriately and achieving results in the stipulated time. So I can be efficient without being effective. I am just making sure that I am using inputs and getting the best output out of them. But I don't really care about whether or not I am meeting what I have promised. I am doing exactly things the way I said I would do them. So this move towards just-in-time and lean practices has eliminated waste, but it has also reduced effectiveness. Then we are wanting to consolidate suppliers. People now don't want to deal with plenty suppliers. We want to reduce the potential of supply failure. So we select a few of them and we work with them. That in itself creates risk. Because then the fewer the people, the higher the risk. Because when they fail you, then you are in trouble. But when the people are many too, tendency of failure is reduced. And yet the supply chain becomes complex, thereby increasing its vulnerability. So no matter what, risk will be with us. And then there's move to offshore manufacturing and sourcing, where people are going overseas. They are locating overseas to manufacture. People are looking for countries where labor cost is low, where they can easily produce at low cost. And people are also sourcing from countries whose systems are more efficient and therefore prices of things are lower. All this increase the vulnerability because as soon as you source offshore, you increase distance. Transport intensity goes up, and that brings you a higher risk. Then, centralization of production and distribution. Organizations are now moving away from having too many production plants. They rather centralize production, and then they try to distribute from this central point. That creates vulnerability because when you centralize, everything is at one place. Should anything happen to this place, you can never meet your orders. So let's say I am producing Sobolo, and then I have a production plant that I have located in Kumasi only, and I'm supplying the whole country. Anything that happens to this plant in Kumasi, the whole country suffers. The entire supply chain comes to a halt. So in summary, we say that factors leading to supply chain vulnerability include integration of supply chains, the cost reduction philosophy, agile logistics, e-business, globalization, outsourcing, and changing practices in logistics. Let's attempt to see this in detail. When we talk about integration of supply chains, what do we mean? You find that in the past, anytime we talk about improvement to logistics and supply chain, we started looking at them as separate activities. So look at the set of logistics activity. We have procurement, we have inventory and controlling of it, we have transportation, we have warehouse, materials handling, packaging, and so on. If you see this as separate activities, no problem. You will pursue them separately. And each of them will create a vulnerability for you. So, what you need to do is what? To integrate them. Meanwhile, when you integrate them also, they also create their own vulnerability. So, you are going to weigh it and see whether seeing them as integrated activity or singular activities will bring you the least vulnerability. But research has shown that when these are looked at as integrated activity, better results are achieved. So these things should not function, or we should not pursue them as distinct activities. No. They have to be what? Integrated. Because any improvement in procurement has consequences for stock levels. Because when we improve our procurement practice, then we are also increasing or likely to increase stock levels. We improve procurement, we have to stop because delivery will be ordering will be quickly, storage delivery will be done well, and therefore we may have to stop before it goes to production. If you change transportation strategies, warehouse will have to also change too. So we are saying that changes to transport will affect warehousing. Changes to material handling will put new demands on packaging. All these require that then we need to integrate these activities. That way, whatever change we are introducing in one, we also think of what consequence it will have on the other, and we deal with it to make life easier. Then we say that Overall, improvement can only be achieved to the supply chain if all aspects are considered as one single integrated function. Because you cannot say you have done supply chain without procurement. You can't do supply chain without materials handling. You can't do supply chain without inventory, without warehousing. All these are an integral part of the supply chain activities. So, transportation, all these come in. Meanwhile, when you pursue them as singular activities, they have more challenges than if you pursue them as a single whole. But is it easy to achieve integration? No, at all. It's not easy. You have to work at it. So, in working at it, you must think of what? Supply integration and the risk associated with it. So, if we achieve broad supply chain integration, that is to say, we have gotten to a level where all members are working together to give a more efficient system where flow of materials what come at lower levels of risk. Doing this is an ideal rather than a reality, because in reality it is difficult to even make sure that all members are working together to achieve the common goal, because every member comes with their own individual interests. Don't forget that each member will be searching for their individual benefit in the whole process. So, some individuals will place more emphasis on their benefit than on the benefit of the whole. One firm might want to reduce its own risk, so it may have high stocks. But these stocks also hold capital. And so, by wanting to reduce their own risk, they offload part of their high stocks to another organization, not because they want this organization to function very well, but sometimes because they want to reduce their own risk. Some organizations withhold information because they want to be competitive and they want to protect their commercial self-interest. That's it. Because don't forget that the more information you have, the more powerful you are. The more powerful you are. So, some partners will withhold information, and therefore achieving that level of integration will remain an ideal and not a reality. Then, unconvincing concept of shared benefit. Oh, everybody will tell you whatever we are doing, it is for the benefit of all of us. Meanwhile, as Ashantis will say, everybody is thinking of their own individual self. The whole shared benefit concept becomes a myth. Becomes a myth, a total myth. Then there is external integration. And this external integration will normally encourage single sourcing based on long relationships. But long relationships do come, they bring you advantages, but they also come at risk. In fact, sometimes higher risk. So, you will find that integration in itself creates an ideal rather than a reality. But does that mean no level of integration is required? No. Some level of integration is needed. And it is important that it is pursued. Now, the next source of vulnerability is cost reduction. And you see that in many organizations, when they talk about cost reduction, they are looking at the operational level. The cost reduction strategy usually targets the operational level. People at the top don't want to take decisions that will reduce their comfort. So, this strategy has been pursued and it has often targeted operational staff and it has increased vulnerability. I'll give you a small example. Formerly, in this university, when it is time for registration, exams officers and other administrators are stationed at the various departments to help students who have challenges registering. Oh, this is too costly, and because we have to pay them at the end of the day, and so on and so on. That was scrapped because we are pursuing what? Cost reduction. Now you have many students who come around and walk around and they don't even register. When it is time to run results, some of these students are withdrawn because according to the university's policy, if you come and you don't register, you are not a student. So those who want to apply the law strictly will withdraw these students. Some people will have to now spend time to register these students and post their marks. In fact, there was a student that for 3 years, in final year, the results of the student didn't come. And the student now went to follow the exams officer. And then the exams officer asked the student, did you register? The student said no. And you expect your result. He said, oh, but for the past 3 years, I've not been registering, and yet I always see my results. Now you have been withdrawn for not registering. Now the student takes paper and writes a long letter begging that they should be reinstated. So that desire to reduce costs, that targeted operations, has increased the vulnerability of the system. But we say that the firm's logistics strategy consists of all the long-term goals, the plans, the policies, the culture, the resources, decisions, actions that are related to the supply chain. You should know that this strategy gives the context for all other decisions about the organization's supply chain. But it has to balance the competing demands of higher strategies, business environment, and internal features. So, if you are thinking of a logistics strategy, what are they? What is the time horizon? How does that fit into the business environment that you find yourself? What internal rearrangement do you need to do to ensure that this strategy is achieved? So, a good logistics strategy will design the internal features to work best within the environment, taking into account the strategic competencies of the organization. So take you and KNUS. What is our strategic competence? We are able to teach. We are able to teach and train students who have become useful citizens for the nation, to the extent that organizations don't doubt the caliber of our products across the world. You don't hold a KNUSD certificate and you are required to do some courses before you even qualify to do other courses. No. If you finish first degree and you want a master's, you are admitted straight. Unless you want to change a program where they require you to take certain basic courses in the new program you want to go into. So our strategic competence has been in research, in teaching, and in service to the community. Now the question is, what is the logistics strategy that will help us continue to achieve this? So we need good lecture theatres. The lecture theatres must be fitted with ACs, PowerPoint and projectors to make them comfortable. The seats must be comfortable to allow students to sit for long hours. What is the nature of transportation? What are we doing there to ensure that the student is able to be comfortable? So now you find that there is, even though we charge the students a token 50 cedis per year, we are able to give them shuttle service to everywhere on campus. They don't pay anything. I can bet you, if they had to be paying every day, that 50 cedis cannot last a year. But we are seeing it as part of the logistics strategy to help us continue to achieve this strategic competence. We are in the educational environment. We work with the Ministry of Education and the government of the day. So we cannot design logistics strategies that are outside this environment. We must take account of the fact that we have other educational institutions. We have communities around us. All these have an influence on our ability to achieve that strategic competence. So, like I was telling you, strategic competencies are the things that an organization does well, and we do research very well. It is the nation that does not pick our research. In fact, the mechanical engineering department has designed solar ACs. How many of you even know about it? ACs that are powered by solar. They have been able to build an AC-DC adapter that allows the solar energy trap to be scaled up or scaled down according to the needs of the AC. The last time I was there when they were doing the presentation, I told them, you guys have goals. Give it to we in business. Let's sell it for you. So, the importance of the strategic competence comes by doing key activities better than competitors. It is not for fun that a student will choose KNUST over others. When a student applies to KNUST, it is because of what the person has seen. If a student applies to Lagos, to Jimpa, to whatever, it is because of what the person has seen. So, if there are 10 students, how many of them will apply to your institution? It tells you your competitive strength. And you can only achieve that if you do key activities better than what the other people are doing. So somebody is particular about accommodation. And maybe KNUST provides better accommodation than, say, UCC. I'm just giving you an example. Therefore, a student who is too particular about accommodation will prefer to come to KNUST than to go to UCC. On the other hand, if UCC does it better than us, somebody will want to go to UCC because of that. So, you have to do the things better than your competitors, and you must do completely different activities as and when necessary. Any other university in Ghana that introduces free transport will be copying KNUST. So, the likely outcome of doing key activities better than competitors is what? Reduction in operational costs, because as your output grows, as more students apply, and as more students come to KNUST, our unit cost comes down. Because if a lecturer will teach 30 people, and the same lecturer is now teaching 60 people, the same lecturer is now teaching 100 people, of course, the cost per unit comes down. So, if you have to do things differently from your competitors, then perhaps you have to adopt a generic strategy. And we say that doing different operations contributes to a generic strategy of product differentiation. And what it does is that it gives your customers product that they can't find anywhere. If you look at some of the engineering courses and some of the courses we run at KNUST, no other university in Ghana has pharmacy. It is not that I don't know whether the Lagos has been able to start a pharmacy. In fact, at some point, all the way I think to 2010, only 2 universities in West Africa were given the clearance to do pharmacy as a program. Ahmadu Bello in Nigeria and KNUST in Ghana. Come here, we have metallurgy, we have that you can find in other institutions. But we also have those you can never find anywhere. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I know they are there. We ran 68 different science courses. And we ran 17 social science courses. So sometimes when I hear people say, oh, KNUST is being taken over by social sciences, you just know that they don't know what they are talking about. KNUST is 78% pure science and 28% social science. But when people take college by college, and they see that social science alone is the biggest college as compared to engineering, science, and the rest, then they say, hey, social science has taken over. Forgetting that if you are talking about science, engineering is science, College of Science is science, College of Health Sciences, medical school is science. All the others are science. Only social science is social science. So 6 against 1. How can you say social science is taking over the university? But even those who come here to do social science, I tell you, we give them what they can't find anywhere. Sometimes you go to Legon and you finish and you don't even know the course you did. Psychology with sociology minor. What is that? Here we are giving you BA Sociology and Social Work. Everybody knows what you did. BSc Econs. Everybody knows what you did. It's not now linguistics with psychology major. Something. What is that? Now, you can also adopt a lean strategy. And the lean strategy gives low-cost logistics. And it allows managers to achieve this by designing efficient operations. In fact, to say this in a very simple way is to say that, look, lean strategies seek to eliminate waste, and by that they create vulnerability. But for managers to be able to do that, they have to design efficient operations. For you to be able to achieve this lean strategy, you have to design one, efficient operations. What does it seek to do? Minimize stocks, reduce lead time, use fewer resources, employ fewer people, remove duplication of effort, eliminate non-value adding operations. And generally speaking, you are removing all waste. Anything described as waste has to be removed. So, this can be achieved by specific methods. One of them is just in time. And it makes sure that each activity is done at exactly the time it is needed. We don't do an activity and wait. We design a system in such a way that every activity is carried out just at the time it is needed. You can also pursue continuous improvement. You search for a way of doing things differently with small improvement. You don't want to be satisfied with the way you are doing it. Therefore, you are doing it, introducing improvement little by little. If you look at KNUST, we didn't get to where we are today. For us to improve research funds are to be created. Staff are to be trained on how to even do quality research. How to know that this my research has found something that is worth publishing. We're taking through all that. So now many people are better at conducting research and coming out with findings. Then, in terms of community service, we say that if you are able to provide service to the nation, you are giving some points towards your promotion. So people don't decline and run away from national service. When the nation needs them to come and contribute to something, they don't run away because they know there's a benefit. All that are improvements that we have chalked little by little. When students complain about somebody's teaching, the person is given a refresher training when it is found to be true. And at the same time, the person is allowed to be mentored. So the person, if it's a young person, it is attached to an older person to see class management, to see presentation skills, and so on. Then, you can also pursue a lean strategy by compressing time. You know that supply chain, one of the biggest challenges of supply chain is idle time, wasted time, because of the nature of the activities. Look at simple loading and offloading activity. If you don't have somebody who is a supervisor and who is up to the task, people will come and converse. I'll tell you a small story. We had a Ghanaian who went to Germany in the 1980s when technology, loading and offloading technology has not advanced like today. In fact, it was in the 1980s, around 1988, 89. So he went and met a work schedule. So this is a track. This truck has brought farm produce. So it opens its, so you stand here. Then there's another truck. It's like a decoupling point. There's another truck. That is going to take the distance to town. So one individual is here. Another individual is here. Somebody has to stand here. So that when this person brings the good to this person will put it here and this person will take it in. Now this Ghanaian believes that, oh, you can waste time. You work small, converse small, chat, rest, and come and continue. So when the indigenes were signing for 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time, they sign for 15 minutes, they work, take a rest, come back, sign for another 10 minutes, and so on. He went and signed for 2 hours. Greed. 2 hours. So the way it is, you lift and you put. You take and you put. You take and you put. So he's standing here, he takes and he puts. He takes. Meanwhile, there's somebody standing there called a supervisor. As soon as you stand small, he says, let's say Abdul, you are not working, move it. So this guy was working. By 45 minutes, he was just moving. He has lost his senses. The next minute, he woke up in the hospital. And the company sued him for 1 hour, 15 minutes. You know why? Because he had signed for 2 hours, they did not allow anybody to come in. So all the people they scheduled them after 2 hours. So this guy has clocked in. He is bringing the things. But this guy is not there to let this guy load. And you know, in their system, those of you who are familiar with it, that this guy is not going to come out and say, oh, because this guy has fainted, let me come and take. No way, he's waiting. You bring, he takes. You don't. So these two people got to be paid for 1 hour, 15 minutes when they had no work to do. So the company sued that Ghanaian, and they had to use part of his scholarship money to pay the company. And that taught him lesson that you cannot cheat time. But this is there a lot in the supply chain. And you know what I'm talking about. So time compression can help you achieve lean strategy. Stockless production, which removes stock of work in progress. You don't work to stock. You only produce when it is needed. Then total quality management. Remember that total quality management is a system that seeks to eliminate defects. And so it introduces inspection at every stage. Under total quality management, you don't wait until the defect occurs at the end of production before you see it. No. You do the assessment in all aspects of the organization and every stage, so that wherever a defect is seen, it is eliminated before it consumes resources and precious time. Then we come to agile logistics. Don't forget that lean strategies are criticized for putting too much emphasis on cost and then not pay attention to flexibility. But agility puts emphasis on customer satisfaction. And remember that you can only do that if you can respond quickly to changing conditions. Therefore, agility pays attention to what? Flexibility. So whereas lean strategies are concentrating on cost reduction or they are putting emphasis on cost, agility is putting emphasis on what? Flexibility. Ability to quickly respond to what? Changing conditions. So an agile strategy allows the supply chain to react to all kinds of unforeseen contingencies, both internal and in the environment, and normally ranges from short delays in delivery, short life cycle, through changing customer demand, and or natural disasters. So these are some of the things that can happen. When there's a late delivery, what? Is your supply chain able to accommodate a change to not halt production? Sorry. If the life cycles of your product are shortening, are you able to introduce a supply chain that will introduce a new product or a new line into the system? When customer demand is changing, what do you do? When there's a natural disaster, if you have a supply chain that is able to accommodate this without serious damage, or it is able to do this and come back to its normal in no time, then it is agile. So logistics managers can achieve this agility by designing a system that delivers materials in the best way possible. When you do that, you reduce risk. And then this risk will come from unsatisfied customers, lost orders, and low response. Because you have designed a system that is flexible and that is delivering materials in the best way. But you should remember, agility, like all the others, brings its own risks. You can't introduce flexibility without introducing perils, and the perils are risks in themselves. Let's come to e-business. And without a doubt, the complex nature of procurement makes e-business extremely useful in the supply chain. Because remember that effective procurement begins with what? Identifying the materials needed. Then somebody has to generate a perfect description or a very clear definition or description of the material. So you realize that in our procurement process, the procurement officers will just give you a prototype of what they want you to supply. They don't want any ambiguity of description. Then we have to search for the suppliers. Then there's a request for price or a price quotation or something. Then we issue a purchase order. Where we are allowed to negotiate, we negotiate. We organize transport. We discuss all the conditions necessary. We arrange finance and arrange payment. That is typical procurement. That is why you find that formerly procurement was done by finance officers. Because they have to organize finance and arrange payment. Today we haven't allowed our procurement officers to be doing this bit. But in fact, technically, it is part of procurement. This, in the past, will have required a lot of paperwork. But these days, because of internet and other things, we are able to do this through online systems. And as a result, we are able to do all this at what? Low cost. Both entry cost and transaction cost have reduced. So, e-business has developed in three main directions. Business to business, where one business buys material from another business. Or, that's the B2B. Then we have B2C, that's business to customer, where a business sells directly to a final customer. Or C2C, where we are using electronic and other unconventional means to get to the customer, including car boot sales. So we don't have formal business, and yet we are engaged in. It's like we can't say customer to customer, but the C2C is like a direct contact with the customer through any means possible. So one key benefit of e-business is that it emphasizes on information rather than physical materials. So, the RFID is part of the e-business tools. It has enabled us to track using barcodes. So, we are able to see the entire supply chain through some barcode something. Some organizations have even trackers that they put around the vehicle and in the driver's compartment. They see everything going on. So, we have also monitoring vehicles through telematics. And then we have controlling warehouses with automatically guided vehicles. We are also monitoring transactions and payments. We are able to do all this behind our PC. That is how e-business is important to the supply chain. However, in spite of the numerous benefits e-business brings, e-business also exposes the supply chain to vulnerability. You know about hacking? Hacking. That is the biggest vulnerability to the supply chain. Because when you can do things online, you are also afraid of hackers. So, how? Through the weaknesses of the e-business platforms. Because I remember once I was going for a conference, and some people hacked into the conference account. I paid $300, and then it didn't get to the conference organizers. So here was I have paid for the conference, and yet the organizers don't have the payment, and so I couldn't attend because I wasn't ready to pay again. So e-business has its benefit, but it also introduces vulnerability. Let's go to globalization. I know that globalization has become possible because of improved communication, particularly through the internet. So it has allowed businesses around the world to be physically close through communication. Today, through Skype, you and somebody can just communicate who is in the US or any part of the world. You are seeing the person with your koro eyes. The person is also seeing you. You are hearing what the person is saying loud and clear. The person is also hearing you loud and clear. Sometimes when you do a Skype meeting, it is when you shut down all the systems that you realize that, oh, okay, so was I the only one here? That is the advantage that globalization brings. So the global network, the way we have linked ourselves up, have made us a global village. So it has allowed organizations to widen both their supplier and customer bases. Because now, technically, depending on the way you do your thing, you have customers all over the world. And you can source from suppliers all over the world too. So all you need to do is to improve your transportation, your storage, and so on. Because you should realize that if you source from very far, then lead time will be high, and therefore you may have to stock. Otherwise, you will run out of the product before the new consignment has arrived. What are the factors that have encouraged global operations? 1. The desire for lower costs. The desire for economies of scale, where people have become big and therefore they are using their size. The desire to reduce risk. Availability of the knowledge and skills. Today we have people who are doing MSc Global Supply Chain. They are just training themselves to deal with supply chain beyond the borders of countries. Closeness of raw material. These days, organizations are locating where the raw materials are, and therefore some organizations are even becoming multinational in nature because they have to venture into countries where their raw materials are. Trade barriers have been removed. There is growing demand in new markets, and customers are becoming more knowledgeable about a lot of things. So then customers are demanding more things. There's convergence of demand. So you find convergence between different kind of markets. There's improved communications. Logistics have become more efficient. In some countries, transportation is not an issue. You can guarantee anything you want to do through the transport system will be achieved. Support services have also grown. And then we have cross-border mergers and acquisitions. Organizations are stepping beyond their borders to buy other organizations that are failing or even merge with them for better performance. So we say that global operations obviously bring a lot of benefits, but there are also risks in extended journeys around the world. Because you can be traveling and you go and run into an earthquake. So earthquakes and tsunamis, hurricanes and extreme weather conditions, wars, terrorist outbreak of diseases like corona, problem with supply chain partners, all this crime, financial risk, all of them serve to reduce the benefit that we get from global operations. However, even with the existence of the mere quantum of global operations, the volume of goods, services, money that moves, these factors cannot bring it down. So, going into the future, I can bet you global operations will even become more. Corona cannot affect it. Temporarily, it will shut it down. But after Corona, you will see an upsurge in global activities. Now we come to outsourcing. You know that most organizations say, we want to concentrate on our core competence. And so they tend to outsource those other things that they think they are not competent in. One of the things I have found is that organizations to outsource, it is not, you shouldn't just pay attention to whether this is a core business or a non-core business. Because I am beginning to realize that people are doing one of two things. Either they are outsourcing those things that were making them profitable, or they are outsourcing to organizations that don't even have the competence they have. So let's say I am producing shito, and then I say that my preoccupation is the production of the shito. That is my core competence. Therefore, I offload anything transportation and distribution to a company. Maybe if I was doing it, I would have done it better than them. Companies are now incurring bigger costs as a result of outsourcing than doing it in-house. I'll give you a small example. We have a building in Accra. We had employed 6 people that were paying, I think, 400 Ghana a month. 6 of them is what, 2004. We decided that, cleaning services is not part of our core mandate. Then we invited Zoom Lion. Zoom Lion says they will take 10,000. We agreed to pay Zoom Lion 10,000, and they employed the same 6 people that we were using. What kind of outsourcing is this? Outsourcing shouldn't bring us bigger costs. Many organizations don't realize it. So there is talk of, outsource. We are not paying attention to the cost the outsourcing is bringing us. So more than half of the third-party logistics don't give the level of service needed. They don't even build their capacities. They are in there to make profits. So you find that a lot of companies are now incurring bigger costs and losing as a result of the outsourced functions. Some of them have just found that, so they were even making profit because of the non-core functions. So you produce, but because you are doing the transportation yourself, the savings that you are making in the transportation is letting you look like you are efficient. So if you outsource the transportation, you are in trouble. What are the changing practices? And you find that we are becoming more concerned about the environment. So now we have green logistics, green supply chain. There's a concentration of ownership such that people are more responsible for the various logistics activities. Movement of power to retailers. Now, if you joke with those who retail your products, you will go out of business. We have changing manufacturing processes where people are pursuing decentralized manufacturing to centralized manufacturing. We even have people moving from mass production to mass customization. Mass production is when you produce a lot of the same type and customers have to come and find out whether they want it or not. But mass customization is when you group the people who want about the same thing. So I'm producing cars and about 1,000 people have ordered about the same thing. I produce it, but this is a customized order, except that I'm doing it on a mass scale. Then economies of scale. People want to benefit from their size. You know, when you are a big company, you benefit financially because you can get loans from the bank at lower cost. You benefit commercially because you are able to bargain, because you'll be buying in bulk, and so you are able to bargain prices downwards. That is commercial economies of scale. Now you are able to employ more skilled people. Can you imagine if a company wants to employ me, say Farm Milk, and Eja Mensa Enterprise, who has just one store at Edum, also wants to employ me? Even if Eja Mensa will pay me double what Farm Milk will pay me, I would prefer to go to Farm Milk because the job there is more stable because of their size. They are enjoying managerial economies of scale. As for Eja Mensa, one day if you are annoying, he can fire you. Even though Farm Milk can fire you, but the processes there are more streamlined. Then we have postponements. That is where it's a strategy where you delay production until you have either more orders or you have clarified the order. So you pursue postponement. Then we have cross-docking, where when goods arrive, they are quickly shipped without any serious handling. So I have a truck coming in with product B. I have another truck coming in with product C. Then they all come into a premise. And then another truck leaves. It has B and C. Then this one too leaves with B and C. So this is the cross-dock point. That is where we go, and with minimal handling, we are able to dispatch the goods. So it is also now becoming very ripe, except that in Ghana it is not serious because we do a lot of handling. We want to receive an order that can fill a truck before we move. So then we have direct delivery, where manufacturing companies are delivering direct to customers. We also have smaller deliveries. Today people have Kia trucks that are able to go around to deliver to those who need smaller bits. All this requires that you, the organization, take account of it. Otherwise, these little things will bring you down. Then, now, because of the way we have designed packages to be rectangular, vehicle utilization has increased. So when we have a vehicle, we are able to pack things into it very well. Unlike first with irregular shapes, we are not able to utilize the entire space of the vehicle. You imagine if you are carrying a canoe. You know the way the canoe is. If this is the track, the canoe will be in the track like that. So it will carry one. All the sides will be there. Nothing will be there. Cube utilization is low. That is also a changing practice. Vehicle utilization is increasing. Nobody will hire your truck and leave a lot of space. No. Thank you very much. If you have any issues, please contact elearning@kenuniversity.edu.gh or you can send them an email at elearningkenuniversity@gmail.com. You can also call them on 020 4743 271. Thank you.